All right, guys. This is the Anthropology of Kung Fu Cinema. I am David J. Moore. I wrote a book called The Good, the Tough, and the Deadly, Action Movies and Stars. This is Eric Jacobus. Eric, please.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I see some new faces too. So a lot's happened since I gave the talk last year. I published a book. It's called If These Fists Could Talk. I have a bunch of copies here today, but I have one problem. I don't buy and sell on Saturdays, so I have to give them away. If you like them, you can pay me tomorrow. That's my deal today. It's a very new kind of experimental business model, but so we are talking about the anthropology of Kung Fu cinema, and the format's going to be a little bit looser than it was last time. Last time I had a big PowerPoint up, and it was a little bit formal, you could say, and this time we're going to kind of keep it a little bit loose. I want to talk about what makes Kung Fu action cinema so unique, and sometimes it seems goofy, people flying around on wires and whatnot. And I want to show that it's actually not that goofy if you understand the context of Chinese culture, Chinese religion, the history of China, and also its influence throughout the world. And I want to talk too about how much it's actually influenced the world, some of the main players, why they were so successful, how they changed things, and where we might be going. So I had planned on showing this clip. Is it easy to dim the lights? Like, maybe you on or off?
Try it off for a second.
Off right now, and then after the clip. I'll just show you this quick clip here. Let me see. Is there audio on this thing?
Yeah,
Here we go. All right. So let me give you a taste of early Kung Fu cinema here. Let me see. Is it gonna play? Oh, there's no audio coming out of there.
I hear it a little bit.
You can hear it? Okay, sorry. Look, I'll get an idea. There we go.
You bark? Yeah, you're at 31%.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We can talk over it. This is
Yeah.
fine. So early Kung Fu action cinema in Hong Kong. It's very staged. It's very operatic. It's on the stage. And I'm going to get into exactly why that was the case and how things changed also. You can see, there's not much editing. It's very much filmed like a stage performance, kind of like Buster Keaton, kind of like Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin. And this is in the 60s, right? Action cinema didn't really change a whole lot between the 1920s when it sort of started in Shanghai into the 60s, and this is in southern China and Hong Kong. And I'm going to fast forward to the 60s, and we're going to the mid-60s. Come drink with me. This is King Hu here.
Shaw Brothers, yeah?
Shaw Brothers, yes.
Do you want to say something real quick about Shaw Brothers? What is that?
So Shaw Brothers was one of the major actions. In fact, it was the major film studio in Hong Kong in the 60s and the 70s. And their films were done in Mandarin.
Hundreds of movies.
Hundreds of movies. They churned them out. And their stages were very expensive. People lived on at the studio lot. And if you understand Chinese opera and Chinese live theater, I think you could understand Shaw Brothers, and you can understand the movement and the kind of performance that people were doing at the time. And you see there's a little bit of like clever montage editing here, right? And this is wuxia, and this is very simple wuxia. Okay, we can bring the lights up, please.
Whoa, wuxia.
Wuxia, can we bring up the lights? Yeah, wuxia is this very simple form of it, is mythical storytelling. So let's go back many generations. Wuxia began in novel form. It was written form. This is storytelling. So just as, the West has the Iliad and the Odyssey, China has Heroes of the Marsh, or Outlaws of the Marsh, excuse me, the Monkey King. These are the mythologies of China. And they go really far back, thousands of years. And in wuxia, people are flying around me. And there's a lot of Taoism and mysticism kind of wrapped up in this. And it's very difficult for us to comprehend the meaning of that. But essentially Chinese martial arts, and excuse me, Chinese religion is essentially a kind of worship of the dead and a worship of nature. And when I say worship, I say that loosely, right? It's not like people are always bowing down to it. It's not quite like that. It's a little bit of magical mysticism, a little bit of worship, sacrifice. You have spells, incantations, and all this, right? It's a very rich system. And theater was where that was acted out in person. So if you think about live theater, it's very difficult to do flying around in live theater. They might have had clever ways to do it. They might have had wires on stage. It would have been very simple. But wuxia is this combination of mythical storytelling with theater. They figured out how, with a camera, to do montage editing to sell the idea of people flying, of defeating 15 people very realistically. And that was what the wuxia cinema was trying to accomplish.
Do we still have wuxia cinema today?
Yes, has anybody seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? That was probably when wuxia cinema really hit the West hard. We all kind of got it at that point. And does anybody remember Buffy the Vampire Slayer? There's a lot of there's a lot of flying around in that show, right? And that's not an accident. That's because all of these Hong Kong stuntmen and stuntwomen were coming to the States in the late 90s because Hong Kong was being ceded back to China. And all these filmmakers and stars didn't quite know what they were going to do, and so they started moving into America, Canada, UK, Australia, and you get all these amazing action films in the late 90s in America. We got The Brain Drain, right? We got Crouching Tiger, we got The Matrix, we got Rush Hour, right? We got Michelle Yeoh for a while. Still kind of had her, right, technically.
So is The Matrix technically a wuxia?
It absolutely is. That's like a weird kind of like Silicon Valley wuxia, if you think about it, because 1999 is like the year of the Cubicle movie, and you combine the Cubicle movie with wuxia. How amazing is that, right? We got our own wuxia in America.
What do you mean cubicle movie?
American Beauty, Fight Club, Matrix, Clock Watchers was like 97. Being John Malkovich. These are all movies in 1999 that were in cubicles. It was a weird year. Apparently it mattered. So this right here, traditional Chinese action cinema. Okay, all of that changes with one man. Anybody guess who that man is? Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Yep, Bruce Lee. Oh, the sound would really help, but that's all right. We get the idea. So, Bruce Lee.
Your volume's down.
My volume's down? Oh, that's okay. You know what? I'll just talk over it. It's okay. Because I want to talk about the movement. Bruce Lee is using fighting techniques.
Eric, real quick.
Yes. Okay, well, I can turn that up a
Battery.
little bit.
There you go.
It's quiet, but you
Bruce
get
Lee.
it.
Well, come on. We know what it sounds like.
Yeah, he's a wata. And so look at how Bruce Lee now is moving, right? Now, that first clip that we saw, the black and white video, people were moving around constantly. There was a lot of jumping, a lot of acrobatics. It was very cooperative. It was very cooperative action. This is non-cooperative, which is how a fight is. If anybody does martial arts, you don't really want to cooperate with your opponent when you're fighting them. And that's what Bruce Lee was trying to sell in his action design.
Well, he's very much in the center here, right?
Yeah, so he did something very smart with his action filmmaking. Bruce Lee was more than just a martial artist. He was an amazing filmmaker. And he understood camera presence. So he took what was essentially the Japanese film model, and I'll show you an example just to give you an idea. What he would do is he would set the camera up and let the action play according to where the camera was, and he would choreograph to that. So there was this other actor at the time. I'm going to pause this and move to a different clip. His name was Shintaro Katsu. Has anybody ever heard of Shintaro Katsu? This is Zatoichi. Zatoichi,
The blind swordsman, yes?
the blind swordsman, one of the greatest action heroes of all time. And you look at how Zatoichi, the camera doesn't really move. And this is traditional Japanese filmmaking. Again, this is kind of like a stage performance. But what they would do is they would set the camera up and they would just design the action for the angle. So people leave camera. And then look, he sets up the... Oh, my battery died. That's great. Can I have it? Can I plug in over? Is there an outlet over here? Here, you turn up the lights. That's okay. We'll keep talking while I set those up. So, let me plug that in. Thanks.
Well, going back to Chuck Norris, we saw him there. Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
And so, well, on that note,
Yeah, well,
so there's a reason that Chuck Norris is in that movie. Chuck Norris was a Vietnam War vet, and in Vietnam he brought back a martial arts style called Tang Soo Do. Tang Soo Do is a Korean martial art, and there were a lot of these guys that were bringing back Korean martial arts to America during the Korean War and then the Vietnam War. Chuck Norris was one of them. There were a whole bunch of these guys, and they were basically bringing competitive fighting outside of boxing to America. And that's a big deal, and I'll explain why. There wasn't a whole lot of that in Hong Kong. It's kind of counterintuitive to think this, but Bruce Lee was brought up under a martial arts system called Wing Chun, and Wing Chun is a very closed system. And there's even a term in Wing Chun which is called playing sticky hands. And they call it playing because it's not really about attacking so much. It's very cooperative, semi-cooperative, not so cooperative sometimes too. But the tradition of Chinese martial arts is a combination of combat and very cooperative movement. And that's what we have to understand about this, is that Chinese action traditionally is not for fighting. We have to understand this. It's actually much deeper than that. Say hello to my little family.
beautiful.
Hey, look at that. Right where we left off. Cool. And actually, Japanese cinema, yeah, we can kill the lights, thank you. Japanese action cinema is predicated a little bit more on actual combat. So if anybody came to my talk last year, I talked about the difference between kind of Japanese style movement and Hong Kong style movement. Japanese style movement is not very cooperative. If you watch, these guys aren't really cooperating with Shintaro Katsu, with Zatoichi, to make a more beautiful movement. The point is to demonstrate proficiency, and the filmmaking lends itself to that, right? And so Bruce borrowed heavily from this, and he took the filmmaking from Hong Kong action cinema because he used a lot more editing. And that, I think, is the beauty of Bruce Lee, and I think that that's why his style worked so well, and it was so exportable, and he was so influential that you have these amazing, you have Jim Kelly. Blaxploitation was so influenced by Bruce Lee because his style was sort of exportable, right? You could put a star in the middle, you could edit around him, you had these really cool moves. And so Bruce really changed the game quite a bit. And then when he died, nobody quite knew what to do.
Well, just copy.
Well, they copied him, right? They literally made a movie called The Clones of Bruce Lee. Sorry, that's a
Bruceploitation, you guys have heard of that.
Bruceploitation, yeah. Yeah,
They're still doing these.
Yeah, this movie is literally called The Clones of Bruce Lee, right? They took all of the major, there were a whole bunch of Bruce Lee knockoffs in the 70s. There's Bruce Lee, Bruce Le, Bruce Liang. It wasn't really a knockoff, but yeah, there they are, right? Dragon Lee. Guys came from Korea to do it.
I love Dragon Lee. That guy's awesome.
Yeah, I love him too. He's fun. And you could kind of see that there was this like yearning to find, yeah, it's, I don't know why my audio is not working. Let me see.
This guy looks like Jason Scott Lee. It's amazing.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? So,
There's Bolo.
yeah. And so here's one thing to note about Bruce Lee. And I'm going to put on another clip from Enter the Dragon, which really, and what I picked this scene in particular because I think that when Bruce goes underground into the lair, I think this is his true action form here. Because look at the filmmaking. The camera is not doing much. Earlier in the film, there's a lot of cutting. Down in this scene, every scene is a oneer. And the guys enter and leave frame. So he was kind of, again, combining that American and Japanese action cinema with like a little bit of Chinese flavor, right?
Isn't Jackie in here?
Jackie's in there somewhere. Yeah, he gets clocked in the face. It's a famous story. And so, okay, we can turn the lights up. One thing about Bruce is, there's his movie Fist of Fury. Does anybody know the movie Fist of Fury? I believe it was his second big film. In Chinese, it's called Jingwu Moon, Jingmo Moon. And Jingwu was a fitness center that was established in Revolutionary era China. I believe it was established a little bit before 1911. My history is a little bit off. But essentially, what was happening in the late 19th century in China was that in the mid 19th century, there was a regime called the Qing Dynasty. They were Northerners. They were all perceived as these foreign invaders from the north, these horsemen, right, who were very sort of noxious to the Han Chinese. The Han Chinese had ruled before that in the Ming Dynasty. The Qing took them over in the 17th century, sort of maintained the same sort of rules. But in general, Han people didn't really like the Qing so much. And so in the 19th century, the Qing started getting overwhelmed. They had some bad economic policies. They're heavily in debt. They couldn't really withstand foreign invasion. And so there were 8 different countries that invaded along the coastline, Great Britain being one of them, one of the big ones. They started selling opium. Long story short, China gets very embarrassed by this whole thing, right? Because these foreigners are showing up with guns. And at a certain point, there is a group of people, Han sort of nationalists called I can't remember the Chinese name, but they were called the Boxers. The Boxer Rebellion went around and started massacring Christians, whatever missionaries, trying to kill off foreigners. And they were so nationalistic about Chinese culture that they actually thought that having a medallion on them would protect them from weapons. And this is what's called iron shirt technique. There are actually some missionaries in the 19th century that write about iron shirt technique that they noticed in they called them cults at the time, right? And this iron shirt technique was believed to protect you against weapons. And there are certain tricks you could do in live shows, right? If you took a dull blade and you hacked at a guy's stomach, and they still do this stuff today, right? And look, our mysticism sort of defends against these weapons, and so they thought that would work against bullets, and that didn't work. And so all of these boxers ran headfirst into rifles aimed at them from Great Britain, and they got slaughtered. And so at that point, China has this huge sort of change of opinion about traditional martial arts, which was, we need to get rid of all this nonsense. Now, it's commonly said that Mao was the one who got rid of all of the old tradition in China, but the truth is that this process was underway by the turn of the century. Okay? At that time, everybody was so embarrassed by the loss that they wanted to get rid of mysticism entirely and just import Western medicine, Western sports, Western fighting wholesale. And there was a whole movement called Jingwu. Jingwu was this sort of like westernized health organization that tried to introduce real fighting. And what it was trying to do is it was mixing in what it could from Chinese martial arts. There was even this movement called Guoshu, the nationalists created, and this later became Wushu. Wushu became this sort of performance art of martial technique. And the attempt was to demonstrate that Chinese martial arts was competitive on a national scale, or on an international scale. And Bruce Lee sort of came from that mentality, which was, let's show the world that Chinese martial arts can be adapted. And in a sense, he absolutely succeeded, because when we think of Bruce Lee, we think of this Chinese guy who went international with his Chinese martial arts. And really what he was doing was he was adopting everything he could to make his martial art so great, right? That's what Jeet Kune Do was about. But that is not really the essence of traditional martial arts, right? And after Bruce Lee died, there weren't really any real replacements, right? I love Dragon Lee too, don't get me wrong, I love Dragon Lee. But nobody could really replace him. And in fact, can we kill the lights? There was still a sort of movement underway to maintain traditional Chinese action cinema. And there were guys like Lau Galong who made films like Mad Monkey Kung Fu, and this is another Shaw Brothers film. And this is like not Bruce Lee style fighting at all. This is almost cooperative.
It's very block, chop, chop, chop.
Yeah, and it's very beautiful, right? That like if Bruce Lee is a weapon, then this is calligraphy, I would say. This is kind of like the calligraphy of action. It's not even pretending to be something that could actually win wars and kill people. There's a lot of ideas of virtue and righteousness, right? And you know, it's the main character Xiao Ho without the shirt. He's been trained in what's called monkey kung fu. Look at his head movement. He's moving his head around like that each time. He's sort of embodying the Monkey King, right? And that's actually what Chinese theater was. And this is very difficult for us to understand. We can kill the lights or turn on the lights. It's very difficult for us to understand, but Chinese theater is essentially possession theater. And let me try and explain that real quick. So when somebody went up on stage to do a performance as Guan Yu or the Monkey King, they would actually undergo a process to get possessed by that patron god, whatever it might be. And so if you're a Guan Yu, you weren't allowed to talk until the performance was over. If you're the Monkey King, you better be acting like a monkey, or it kind of like kills the vibe, you know what I mean? But they really believed it. And I doubt it was even an issue of breaking character, right? If you're possessed by something, then you're going to act as that thing. And then after the show was done, you underwent an exorcism and you went back to, you know, your normal state. And so that's sort of like where this traditional style of filmmaking, can we kill the lights again? There's another example. There's this great movie called Spooky Encounters by Sammo Hung. And this is another one like this. Oops, excuse me. We have Sammo. Let me restart this one. So Sammo is, again, he's playing the Monkey King, and then this other fellow is playing Nja, the infant god, right? The infant warrior that killed the dragon, right? And these two have been possessed earlier in the scene by their respective sorcerers, right? And now they're fighting it out. They're sort of fighting this proxy war between like two sorcerers, right? And in this part, they're talking together in their like weird possession languages and whatnot, right? And so this is sort of like the bread and butter of post Bruce Lee Hong Kong action cinema. And there's some really beautiful things that came out at that time. David, sorry, did you? We can turn the lights on again. But Sammo Hung was actually at the forefront of a new idea. And Sammo was a big Bruce Lee fan because Sammo worked with Bruce Lee on Game of Death and on Enter the Dragon. He was one of the first, I think he's the first fight in that movie.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's no doubt in my mind that Bruce made a huge impression on Sammo because Sammo was raised in an opera school, just with Jackie Chan and a few other guys too, Yuen Biu, Yuen Wah, and these guys all became Hong Kong action stars. And they were all trained in opera, which is, again, that possession theater that I was talking about. And it was Beijing opera based in the South. And their idea of martial arts is, again, very performative, much less about fighting and combat, much less about competition, much more about maintaining tradition, maintaining this kind of possession theater. And then Bruce Lee comes along and kind of like distills it down to, well, what wins in a fight? And Sammo, being a fighter, gets an idea. And he has the same idea as Bruce, which is bring in real fighters. And he made this movie, and this is often called a Jackie Chan movie, but it's not. It's technically a Sammo Hung movie. Wheels on Meals. Benny Urquidez is on the left, a real competitive fighter, undefeated in kickboxing.
This is one of the greatest fight scenes of all time.
Yeah, arguably the inventor of kickboxing. Now look, again, there's all of this pausing. There's not much cooperation here, right? This is much more about a real fight now.
Very progressive fight compared to what we saw earlier.
Yes. Right, and the pacing is of a fight, not of possession theater, right? These are guys who just want to fight. Jackie's got his character. Urquidez has his character, obviously. He clocked him for real there. And Sammo knew, we can turn the lights on. Sammo knew that bringing in real fighters.
Real contact.
Exactly. Sammo knew that bringing in real fighters, you could actually hit them. And he was smart. Yeah, I don't think he did too many takes doing that. I could be wrong. But by bringing in a real fighter like Ben Urquidez, it lent itself to so much more legitimacy. And so Samo really started opening up that can of worms again, that kind of like real competitive action scenes in movies. He brought guys in from all over the world. He started training his guys in Hapkido. His guys, as in Jackie Chan, he started training in Hapkido. Before Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan didn't really do that kind of fighting. This is actually fairly new for him. He wasn't really learning that stuff until early 80s, maybe. And there were so many Koreans working in Hong Kong that they just went to this one, I can't remember his name, but they went and learned Hapkido from a Korean guy in Hong Kong. And they learned how to fight so that they could look good on camera. It's kind of like me. And then Jackie has his own take on it. Now, I won't get into too much of the psychology here, but there's definitely a different, Jackie Chan definitely has a different personality than Sammo Hung. Now, he went to school with, sorry?
This police story.
This is Police Story.
Yeah.
So Jackie has a very different personality than Sammo. Sammo is a fighter. Sammo loves fighting. He loves hitting people. Jackie loves not fighting. Jackie invented this style, which is almost this like anti-martial art. And if you watch the way that he choreographs this fight, this is 1 year later, by the way, 1 year. You watch how he choreographs this fight, and you'll see that there isn't really a style.
A lot of defense, a lot of evasion.
Right, and none of it has like any snake fist. There's no eagle claw. There's no, proper jujitsu. There's no counting the bullets like in John Wick. It's just sort of like stream of consciousness. Whatever works, do it.
Yeah, it's dirty.
Yeah, it's dirty. It's like if Charlie Chaplin. It's a Chaplin fight. It's exactly like a Chaplin fight.
And it looks incredibly dangerous.
It is. I mean, this is his whole persona, right? It's like getting out of the fight. Well, in this movie, not so much. He's a cop. He's trying to bring these guys down, but he's not really into the fighting part. He just wants to arrest a guy. That's really all he wants to do. You kind of imagine someone like Sam or Bruce Lee deciding to square up and do it.
Well, Jackie was also very much into doing bit larger than life stunts. It wasn't just the fighting.
Right, and again, that's to emphasize the danger. Right. Jackie really wanted to sell vulnerability. That was his big selling point. Okay, let's bring the lights up. And so what's interesting at this time is that, there are a lot of these guys going to America. And Jackie Chan came to America quite a few times in the 80s and did various films. He did one called The Protector in 1985. I was born in the 80s, never heard of that movie. He did Battle Creek Brawl. I was born in the 80s, never heard of it. Had no idea what that was. In America, I don't think we were ready.
Cannonball Run. They threw him in the trash in those movies.
And
he played a Japanese guy.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Like we just didn't know any better, right? At the time, we were so wrapped up. I don't know, maybe it was the Cold War. We were just totally focused on the Japanese style. Japanese and American style. We had Van Damme, we had Chuck Norris, Ninja Turtles. Even though the Ninja Turtles was a Hong Kong movie in America, they're Ninja Turtles and they basically fight like samurai.
Ninjas were massive in the 80s. American Ninja, everything was ninjas. Chuck Norris Karate Commandos.
Exactly. I mean, Karate Kid, for example.
Karate Kid
was so popular that there were various Hapkido schools. Hapkido is Korean Aikido, except it has kicks and punches. That's the style that I learned. And there were a bunch of these Hapkido schools in America because Koreans came over after the Korean War and established Hapkido schools. They were everywhere. And then after the Karate Kid came out, they renamed them to karate schools. Why not? Whatever gets people in the door, right? And so we just weren't quite ready, right? And I don't know. I mean,
Sho Kosugi. You guys remember Sho Kosugi?
Yeah, Sho Kosugi. I mean,
the ninja films.
You could kind of make the case that, Hong Kong was doing its thing at the time and America was kind of doing its thing at the time.
But that the wires didn't quite cross yet.
Not quite. I mean, the wires don't really come in again until... So here's what's happening in Hong Kong at the time.
In America, it was very much about the body. Stallone, Arnold.
Yeah, literally like as much body,
Physique, bulk.
as much body as you can get.
WWF.
Yeah.
You know, these guys.
Yeah. And American fight storytelling is very much like two wrecking balls.
Yes.
And whichever wrecking ball moves the other one more, that's the one that wins, right?
Guns,
And
explosions.
It's more than that, right? There's character, there's virtue, there's your morals, you know, there's all this other, and it's not that that's bad, but that is a very kind of like American way of approaching action. And this Japanese style of approaching action is actually very similar to that in a certain way, except, you know, Japanese had a blade. We had the Colt revolver. That's sort of the difference, right? But in a sense, you could kind of tell the same story. The gunslinger story was very similar to the samurai story, right? The sword duel and the gun duel were very similar. They're shot a little bit differently. The gun duel had the close-ups on the eyes, but otherwise they were basically the same.
Some kind of a shootout in a warehouse.
Yeah, and you know, not many other places had the pistol. Like, in fact, no place had the pistol like we had. The pistol creates its own sort of action genre in America. It allows for the bar fight. I think I made this case last year. In Japan, you don't have a bar fight. There's no bar fighting in samurai films. There are bars. There's fighting.
Inns.
There are inns. Yeah, excuse me, infighting.
Inns.
They call them infighting. 2 inns. They had infights, but the infights always have the sword, right? And the deal was that, like, the inn in the Japanese samurai films, this sort of city of refuge, right? Where, like, you go there, it's like a temple almost. Everybody goes there and you put your sword down and you don't use it, right? I think you have to check your sword in at the door.
Same thing with westerns, right?
Yeah,
We don't have guns in our town.
but one guy does have a gun, and who's that?
Sheriff,
And who else is the second one in the bar?
the outlaw.
The bartender. Bartender has a gun. Bartender has a gun, sheriff has a gun. And the outlaw, but you know, he's not supposed to be in there. So because the sheriff has a gun and the bartender has a gun, but nobody else does, you sort of like create a little bit of a MMA cage fight, if you want, inside your bar, right? It kind of allows for that. But if a bartender has a sword, it's kind of hard for him to stop a fight, right? If the sheriff has a sword, it's hard for him to stop a fight. You have to like run in and actually stop it. Whereas a sheriff with a pistol or a bartender with a pistol can stop it from over here. Just fire a shot in the air.
It's usually an old timer who runs the inn or the bar, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He's seen it all. He's had that place since the beginning of time. He's seen other fights too, right? Like he's fought natives, right? He's done all this stuff, right? And that allows for the bar fight. And you just don't have a bar fight in Japanese cinema because you have to like jump the bar and start cutting at the guy. So like, how do you even choreograph a bar fight? And they just don't think of doing that. That's why it's Japanese samurai action is just swords, but American action cinema is gunplay and bar fights. You get both. No question over here.
So, like, you're saying the deals will be over right for this as well. But that Sumo Hum's ideals more fighty, sees, and then Jack is of the office, and we found high in the back sheet. There is, we're seeing that fighting more, more race of that. Whereas Jack is, are these two ideas so draw together? Engine me for the next.
Yeah, good question. So the question is Jackie's trend. And Jackie is definitely the superstar, right? Like Samo is a star for sure, but Jackie becomes a superstar because he's huge in Japan, Malaysia, Korea.
He's also a pop star too.
Of course he can sing.
Yeah.
If you're in Asia and you can't sing, you're nobody. I think Samo probably could sing, but Jackie was like good looking, right? He had like the pop star kind of thing. And this is like another thing about, I think, Asian culture that in America we don't quite get, because we have like genres of performers. In fact, we have genres of music too. Like we're so specific. We're like so autistic about our art. like you go to Hong Kong and you go to like a record store or like a movie store, and you sort of just find like Anita Mui content, right? And you see Jackie Chan content, and it's got his movies, and he's got his action movies, his non-action movies, he's got his music, right? It's all categorized by person, because people do everything, right? Because that's what it means to be in opera. Because opera, you sing, you dance, you fight, you do acrobatics, you do it all, right? And in our opera, it's like you just sing. You just do this thing, right? We're so particularized about it. Okay, so anyway, what I mean by that is that Jackie is making a killing in Asia by doing this sort of new brand of action, which is like very appealing to the new generation because it's kind of anti-violence in a way, right? And America, we're in the Cold War. We're not really into that at the time. This is the era of Reagan, right? We don't want anti-violence. We want Schwarzenegger and Stallone. So it takes a while.
One man.
One-man army. It takes a while. But when it hits, it hits. And what happens, and I'm going to show one more thing too that Jackie does, and this is sort of, well, I'll show the other fight. Jackie has this, what I would say is like the coup de grace of the 80s. Now, I know this is 1994, but remember, decades don't actually map to years, right? In America, the 80s were from like 85 to 94. And it's kind of the same with Hong Kong. So this is 1994. This is really like the last true Jackie Chan Kung Fu movie, Drunken Master 2.
Oh, great movie.
This is a sequel to this, Drunken Master 1, which is 16 years earlier. And this is actually not technically a Jackie Chan movie. This is a Lau Galarong movie. Lau Galarong was the one that did that Mad Monkey Kung Fu fight scene earlier, right? Lau Galarong was an old school traditionalist. And he had this big fight with Jackie on this movie. Big fight. Lau Galarong said, drunken boxing should be fake. What you do is you act drunk, you lure the opponent in with your drunkenness, and then you beat the hell out of them. That was Lau Galarong's vision. And Jackie said, no, I should actually get drunk and fight guys. I think it worked.
This didn't come out theatrically in the U.S. until like 90, or
Yeah, late 90s.
late 90s.
Okay,
yeah.
so let's jump to that. Let's go to the late 90s now. So in the late 90s, you can turn the lights on. So bear in mind something right now. There's a lot of stuff happening in the sort of behind the scenes in Hong Kong throughout the 80s and 90s. 1979, Deng Xiaoping becomes PM, or is it a PM of the CCP? Whatever. He starts running China. And Deng Xiaoping really wants to open up China. And what he does is he starts opening up co-productions. And there's this young lad by the name of Jet Li who gets noticed through these co-productions. Has anybody seen Once Upon a Time in China? Yeah. So Jet Li was
I didn't see Jet Li. I didn't know who that guy was until Lethal Weapon 4 in 98.
So
That
again,
guy was
Jet Li,
amazing.
let's kill the lights real quick. This is a pure wuxia movie of its like highest form. Now look at the editing. Troy Hark was trained in film school in America actually, but he sort of perfected the montage style. There's so many shots because you're sort of selling these sort of like physics defying moments with editing and filmmaking. Right? Stuff that's impossible. You're combining wires with montage editing. A lot of shots. These movies take months. In fact, I bet you this fight took a month and a half, 2 months, just for a fight. They take forever. Anybody who's worked in Hong Kong knows how long these shoots are. They'll shoot for 16 hours a day, and they'll do one fight for 2 months. That fight from Drunken Master 2, believe that was a 2-month shoot, just to give you an idea. And that's because, again, like look at the number of shots. Like every shot's lit, every shot's framed perfectly, and it's all so that you could tell a gag, right? So at any rate, that's just wuxia. My point was to talk about Jet Li. So turn the lights on. So Jet Li was a Beijing wushu star who was discovered by some recruiters.
Very young, too. He was like 16, 17, something like that.
He was very young. His first movie was called Shaolin Temple, and that was a Hong Kong co-production. And so that's just one example, right, where Deng Xiaoping was trying to open up China for working with Hong Kong. And a lot of Hong Kong filmmakers started working up there, and a lot of mainland action stars started coming to Hong Kong, Jet Li being the big one. And there are a few others, too. And one of the other things that was sort of looming on the horizon was that Great Britain had this lease on Hong Kong that ended in 1997. Now, technically, they did have to give it back. But they thought, you know what, we're not really a superpower like we used to be. No offense. I mean, there's the Suez Canal crisis. What can I say? They decided, you know, let's give it back. Let's just stick to our word, right? Give Hong Kong back. And they didn't really decide that until close to the end. And so all the Hong Kong filmmakers, you think about film production. Imagine making a movie right now, right? Let's say, America. Let's say California is going to be ceded to, I don't know, Japan. Let's just say, right? Let's say it's supposedly going to happen in 8 years from now. Well, how does that affect your financing process? How does that affect capital flow? What currency should you be using? What should you be investing in, right? If that's on the horizon and you don't quite know what's going to happen, you might just move to Nevada and wait and see what happens. And that's exactly what happened in Hong Kong. Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Michelle Yeoh, Yimou Ping, Chow Yun-fat all came to America from around 1996, or Toronto, right, or Vancouver. Jackie went and did a Rumble in the Bronx in Vancouver in 96. Then he did Mr. Nice Guy in Australia in 97. Sammo Hung came and did martial law in 2000.
Chow Yun-fat, Replacement Killers.
Chow Yun-fat became one of the biggest stars in America overnight. And that's incredible to me, right? Because he brought this sort of, he brought, gun fu to America. And this was an extremely exciting moment.
Wait. You said gun fu. What is that?
Okay, gun fu. Look, if you've ever been to Hong Kong, you might notice that they don't have any guns. In fact, traditionally, the police don't even have guns. Great Britain outlawed it. And they didn't really even know what to do with gun cinema. And so John Woo was heavily influenced by American gangster cinema. And Chinese gangsters, the ones who actually used guns, were heavily influenced by America. And so when you combine the violence of like a Scorsese film with that Hong Kong kind of montage style action, you get gun fu. We even had one. It's called Equilibrium.
Oh, I love Equilibrium.
Great movie. What's up?
Gun kata. I think the term in that movie was gun kata.
Okay.
You guys seen Equilibrium?
I remember
It's a great movie.
in high school.
Christian Bale,
And
Kurt
so
winner. Yeah.
we mess with the sound and
I'm surprised some of you have seen that movie.
okay.
That's a great movie. Check it out.
Try.
Well, anyway, The Matrix is one of these films that comes out that just blows everybody's minds, and we don't really have context for it at the time. It's like this is a $50 million movie? I don't know. A kung fu movie like this should not exist, and yet it did, and it was one of the greatest things that ever happened. For some reason, we were ready for this stuff. It's like Americans were so pumped that the Cold War ended that we could just kind of sit back and watch movement.
We had a primer though. The few years leading up to this, Jackie Chan, Rumble in the Bronx, and what you're talking about. This was like the coup de grace.
The foundation was being laid.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of Hong Kong, stunt performers have been coming, and then when Keanu Reeves can actually embody this Hong Kong style in America, you know that it has gone international, right? But I do think that this is sort of a product of things that were happening at the time. I don't think that we all just decided to like Matrix style action. I think that things were, calming down in the world. The late 90s were generally good. The tech bubble, I know that there were some recessions and whatnot, but in general, people weren't too worried about war. And I think it gave us a sort of ability to sit back and just watch movement again. And that inspired a lot of us too. Can we turn on the lights real quick? Okay, yeah. That inspired a lot of us. So what we noticed was the two things were happening. First thing was that after Drunken Master 2, all of those Hong Kong action stars and directors were coming over to the States, and they stopped making stuff there and they were making stuff here. It seemed as though that Hong Kong style was going away from Hong Kong. The second thing was that it looked like if you could learn this Hong Kong style, you could make it in Hollywood as a stuntman. And I thought, hey, I can fall on the concrete. I can do a backflip. I can throw a punch. If I just learn this Hong Kong style, I can do stunts for a living. And so I started learning this Hong Kong style. And we started a whole, we were part of this movement in the late 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. Jay knows it very well over here. Jay had his Jabroni team. We had the stunt people. There were all these teams out there making indie action films that were inspired by the Hong Kong style, not only because we wanted to make it in Hollywood, but we wanted to kind of keep that torch going, we wanted to keep this movement style, this sort of emphasis on performance It wasn't about killing people. It was about cooperating and making community. It was, when you had a team, it was like you had a community with you, right? It was like an opera troupe. It was in every sense an opera troupe, except we were just putting it online. That was the only difference.
So you did some of these.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I can show you. I can show you an example. It's okay. Don't worry. It's all right. We're not gonna have audio. They're just gonna have to listen to me talk. I'm gonna show you this clip for 2 reasons. First reason is that this is my first feature film that I produced, and the other reason is that Dennis Rule in the Gray recently passed, and he was incredibly important to the entire indie action community, and he was incredibly important to me. So I miss him dearly, and he was a man of so many talents, and he really was like this a kind of punk rock action star because he refused to like bend the knee and kiss the ring to Hollywood. He just wanted to make these movies, and he was so he was really like a scion of hope for many of us because we thought that, oh, if we're just like Dennis, we can just do this, right? And we really believed it. And we were just taking the same thing, right? We were just learning from Hong Kong action cinema. We were sort of following their same kind of filmmaking style. We added a little bit of kinetic filmmaking because cameras had a handle on top at the time. It was like the skateboarders in the 90s kind of invented the handle on the camera. So you could hold the camera like a briefcase. And that's why all the angles are kind of low or high, like that one. But like a lot of them are like really low, right? Because we're just gripping it by the handle. I won't go too much into this, but something happens in 2002. The Bourne Identity comes out, sort of like throws that entire plan out the window. And the Bourne Identity, look, say what you want about the fight. This is a smart action style, and here's why. Because they can turn Matt Damon into an action star in 3 weeks with this style of action. It's very cutty.
A lot of fudging.
There's a lot of fancy editing. The camera's actually not quite so crazy in this one, but then when you add camera shake, like in the Bourne Ultimatum, it's almost not even a fight. It's more like an emotion. It's like you're being abused. but Bourne saves you from the abuse. I don't know. Hello? Oh, that's my mic. You just kind of get an emotion from these fights. But that didn't stop everybody. There were some saints out there who kept that torch going, and one of them was Tony Jaa. This is the Protector. Tony Jaa was mentored by a curmudgeon-y old Muay Thai teacher who had made 80s Thai action films that were inspired by Hong Kong cinema. Nobody really sees him. But then Tony Jaa was his protege. And then 2003, Ong Bak came out. This is 2005. Latif, who he's fighting, also from the indie action community. He was part of a Bay Area team called Zero Gravity. They were some of the best in the world. We were totally intimidated by them.
Latif is the Mandalorian. Says that.
Latif is the Mandalorian. He's all over the place. If you will see him everywhere. If you watch American action. So Tony Jaa kept it up. It's very similar, right? Like really what Tony Jaa is doing is he's just sort of adding more impact to the Hong Kong style, right? It's the same sort of filmmaking technique, right? There's a lot of shooting, but they're not really trying to hide a movement, right? You get a lot of wide shots where you just see performances happening, right? These are real fighters. These are people that can actually hit each other. And he's not all. In fact, there was still something happening in Hong Kong. Donnie Yen, with John Salviti, not on camera, but on his crew, brought in mixed martial arts and combined that with the Hong Kong style. This is going to sound terrible, but he's sort of one-upping Bruce just in terms of like the uncooperativeness of the action, right? It's like it barely ever stops, but it's still totally uncooperative, right? It's stuff that's like really hard to choreograph unless you're getting hit, or like it's hard to perform without getting hit, and you really have to kind of know how to fight if you're going to do that. Even if you know how to fight, it's hard to do that. I don't know how he did that. I have no idea. Nobody's done it since.
I remember seeing this in the theater and just completely being blown away by this.
Right, and then there is another team. This team is a Silat martial art team who had never done a movie before. And they're in Indonesia. And they teamed up with a filmmaker from Wales, Gareth Evans, and they made The Rave Redemption. And you essentially, what you're basically seeing is a Silat performance. Silat is an Indonesian martial art. It's heavily predicated on like killing people and, you know, cutting their legs apart and making them suffer horribly. But again, it's like the same, it's sort of the same thing, right? It's very much about watching the performance. Now there is much more violence in this, right? And this is sort of appealing to the video game generation. I think that's why this movie was so popular. It really plays like a video game, this movie.
The same team didn't do Marantau before this?
Marantau came before this. Yeah, that was the first time he teamed up with them. And again, these people had never done action movies before. They just sort of put their Silat into, you know, made that into a fight scene, and he filmed it in a really interesting way. Got $1 million, shot it for 99 days. And, or maybe this is 80 days. I think the second one was 99 days.
Second one's nuts.
Same exact process as Hong Kong filmmaking, right? Taking forever to shoot things, getting it perfect, which is impossible, which is practically impossible to do in the US nowadays. And I'll mention one more. One more man has maintained this, Chad Stahelski and John Wick. And John Wick does something, Chad Stahelski does something extremely smart in this. He's doing 3 things at once. First off, American, the set design, right? Lots of layers, lots of depth, lots of extras, lots of guns. Very American, right? And when you watch the set design in John Wick, every set is beautiful because Chad understands architecture. He has a whole section of architecture books at his house. Second thing he's doing is the Hong Kong style. He's using editing to sell gags. He's doing the montage, right? If you can't do it all in one, just cut. Do it as another shot. He's doing the Hong Kong thing. He's also showing the stunt performers fall to the ground. So he's letting his guys shine. Right? The Japanese style is kind of like the guys fall off camera, right? And you don't really see them hit the ground, but in this you get to see the guys actually hit the ground. You see the stunt performers in pain. That kind of adds to the action. The third thing he's doing is the Japanese style, which is the performer-centered style.
Right in the middle.
He's right in the middle.
Yeah.
The whole time. Keanu almost never leaves the center of frame, right? The camera might kind of bend off to the side and then come right back. So he's doing 3 things at once. He took the best of 3 worlds, just like Bruce, just like Jackie. And that there is how you make great action films.
And that's where we're at with action.
That's it.
I think that's the peak.
That's it.
All right.
So we have 5 minutes? Cool. We can take some questions. I'm just going to start here. Yes.
I'm sorry to backtrack about it. You shot right. He can handle the cinematography for art better. He is more for Sammo Hung.
Well, the question is, who did better choreography in it, man? Sammo Hung, who did 1 and 2, or Yuen Ping, who did 3 and 4?
Oh, come on. 1 and 2.
I'm biased. I say 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, Yuen Ping's style is very different. Yuen Ping is much more of, he's like way more of the operatic style. Sammo Hung did a Wing Chun movie. It's called The Prodigal Son back in 1981. And that revolutionized Wing Chun. And then he did Ip Man in 2008, which revolutionized Wing Chun. So credit where credit's due, I would say. Sammo Hung. Yes?
I heard capoeira being considered drunken.
Capoeira as drunken fighting. That's interesting. I always wondered if capoeira was a kind of,
It's dance.
yeah, but I always wondered if it was almost like a ritual dance.
It's a dance.
It's like,
Yeah.
I would think of it more like it probably started because it's very cooperative, right? And I know they have competitive capoeira leagues, but at its heart, that's a cooperative art, right? And any cooperative martial art has a sort of theatrical nature to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it started out as like, I don't know, as some kind of like possession or exorcism ritual that was done in, by slaves who had brought over, various old traditions to, to the plantations. I don't know, that's what I think
The
about it.
best capoeira movie, Only the Strong. You ever seen it? Great movie.
Great movie. Yes.
I'm just curious where you see something maybe like old boy falls into this lineage of that always see you just joke sector which strikes a similar scale range.
I didn't even talk about Korea. Like, that's its own ball of wax, right? Like, Korea blew up in 99, but they had an action industry going back to the early 70s. There's so many Korean stuntmen who made it big in Hong Kong, and then Korea blows up in 99. I don't know why.
Don Lee.
I
Isn't it his name? Don Lee.
Don Lee.
Don Lee's
he's
amazing.
like Mr. One Punch Man. All right.
Exactly.
So, like I said, I have books. I will give them to you. I can't take money. If you want one and you think you'll pay for it, I will meet you outside. You can have a book. And I will answer all the questions you want out there. Thank you.
Bye.